Welcome to our seance. If you have an open seat next to you at your seance table, would you just raise your hand to let people know if you're over here on the side or standing and you would like to be seated at a table? These folks with their hands up will welcome you to their seance circle. Here's some people looking for a table. Yep. Table for two. Okay. Now, don't get too nervous about being at a seance table, because after all, seance is really just a French word for assembly. And we are assembled together for our theme, the sixth sense. And helping me set this theme, sorry, the spirit was coming through. Helping me to set the theme this evening is our sound sculpture artist, AlejAndro Anastasio.
Thank you.
Now, Alejandro, you are using your sixth sense to guide you in this musical. So tell us a little bit about this instrument, because I won't be able to go on until people know what this is about.
This is the theremin, the world's first electronic musical instrument, invented in 1919, so about 104 years old.
Oh.
Yeah, this thing is great. You play it without touching it, which is great for a one-handed guy. Considered the... No, that's really a joke. It's okay. Considered the easiest instrument to approach, but the most difficult to play.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It is a pivotal, historic musical instrument. And this is made by Moog, who invented the synthesizer, and he got his start making theremins in his garage in 1957. And the history of the theremin is amazing. I'll get to that more later.
And how do you play? Like, what are the guidelines?
How does it work?
Yeah. How are the guidelines here?
What are the guidelines? That's this is the this is the pitch antenna. So the closer I get my hand to this antenna, the higher the pitch.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I had a beer. It's going to sound like this. And then in the morning, if I play, it's a lot of coffee. It sounds like this. Okay, and this side is the volume side. So it creates two electromagnetic fields. It's a proximity instrument. So this side's volume. The higher I get my arm, the higher the volume. And tonight during our seance, sometimes you ask the spirit to knock once for yes, twice for no. Tonight we'll just be asking the spirit to play the theremin. So if Alejandro's nowhere near it and you start to hear it play, we will know something's happening. We have some more people to introduce. I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself. I am your medium, your host, Jodi Eichelberger. Thank you. And we have a team of mediums here this evening to interpret the stories from the spirit world. Next to me here is Lavona Andrew. And we will be joined later by Sarah McIver, I believe. Yes, okay. Thank you, Sarah. I would also like to thank the spirit of our season's sponsor, Chandra Group, for being here tonight. Thank you, Chandra Group. I believe that's their theme song that you just... Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. And now, if you would all... we don't want the seance to be interrupted, so if you would please silence your electronic instruments. And then if you would join me by placing your hands on the top of your table. I won't ask you to hold hands because hygiene. And now, if you are a story subscriber, if you would just allow your hand to lift up off of the table and into the air. Look at all these story subscribers. Wonderful. Now, these are individuals who support us monthly, and in exchange for that, they do have access to tickets for all the shows. And if you would like to have your hand rise into the air in the future, you can use that electronic device I just had you silence to text story sub, as one word, story sub, to 44321. I heard a spirit just there. Yeah. All right, put your hands on the table again, and everyone just concentrate on the energy in the room. Mm-hmm. Oh, something is... Yes, I feel it happening. All right, and now think to yourself, if this is your first time at Story Night, you're wondering, what is this I have come to? Allow your hand to rise into the air if this is your first time at Story Night. Yes, welcome. Thank you for being here. All right, and the structure of the show, our show is in 2 acts, and it is a mixture of featured storytellers who will be joining me in their physical manifestations right here on this stage. And then we also intermix that with a community story slam. And if you have a 5-minute story inspired by the theme, The Sixth Sense, you can visit our friends over here at the story booth, write your name on a little ticket, and the spirits will choose. We do have some more chairs coming in here, so if the people are standing along the wall and you'd like a chair, those are coming in. If you want to be seated at a table, there are a few empty chairs. It's open seating, so if you see an empty chair at a table, that could be for you as well. What else about the structure of the show? I think that's it for the structure of the show. The sixth sense, so that intuition, that inner voice, hearing from the beyond. Now I'm going to invite our featured storytellers up onto the stage in reverse order. First up to the stage, a man who may not need sixth sense. I don't know. Look at him. You be the judge. Mike Krause. Here he comes. And the only storyteller this evening whose story is licensed, David Tuttle. David. He's still coming. And first up to the mic, a woman who has in the past been behind the lens on the other side of the camera as one of our staff photographers. And this time she's moving on this side of the lens. A woman who, I believe this is her first time to the Story Night microphone on our featured story stage. And we are questioning her sense. Please welcome Brooke Burton.
That's cool. Hello, so I'm Brooke Burton, and regarding intuition, I think of it as a little voice that's kind of back here, way in the back. I'm the front of the house, and that's the back of the house. And this little voice of intuition is something that got me a very late night apology. So here's how it happened. I was, a few years ago, looking at my bucket list, why, I don't know. And on there it said, be an actor. So, cool, I can do that. I found some classes, check, they had them in Boise. Film classes, by the way, not stage. And they have photographers here, so I got my headshots, check. I started networking, I got an agent, check. And then I started getting auditions. check, 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 check. You get used to that after a while. So along came this project that I was very excited about. I'd read the script. I knew a lot of people involved, and there was 2 really cool female characters. One of them was a edgy, sarcastic, cynical detective. And the other one was a kooky love interest. So I auditioned for both. And I was too young for the detective, and I was too kooky for the love interest. That's what I've been telling myself, anyway. So I didn't get either of the roles, one of many rejections to come in this business, although a lot of times here it's more of a volunteer opportunity, which is fine. But being excited about the project, I got a job on the set as a behind-the-scenes photographer. And what was really cool about this project is they were bringing in a couple celebrities, like flying them in. You know, Emilio Estevez, yeah, and Martin Sheen. Well, their uncle, Joe, he was being flown in. Yeah. And there's another celebrity they're flying in for a cameo. He's gonna play the doctor. And so then there was this role of the nurse. And they were like, you know who kind of looks like a nurse? And you know whose audition was okay? And you know who invested in the film? Brooke. We think Brooke should play the nurse. It'll be really cool because she'll get, to be in this scene with this celebrity. So I'm like, yes, I am not only being a photographer, which is important too, but I get to do a scene. So I start prepping on this character, the nurse. I figure out her background, where she's from, Nampa. I figure out who her parents were, my parents. That's a fast way to prepare, is to use what you know. And I decide, okay, she's kind of into the doctor, she's kind of got a crush on him, but she can't act on it because she's really strict religious. She's a thirsty Baptist. So I got it all worked out. I have one line in this. Anyway, the day comes, we're filming in this, an independent doctor's office. That's our set. There's this big long hallway. I come in to today, I'm acting, and I go to hair and makeup, and the celebrity is there, and I'm like, play it cool. Don't make eye contact. Don't look at them. Just pretend they don't exist. That's all I know to do. But pretty soon, it's time to do our scene. So me and Larry were, acting, and then they say cut, and we kind of start a little chit-chat. We share a little bit about acting, boring stuff like that. We do another take, a little more chit-chat during cut, another take, chit-chat, back and forth. And finally, we take a break, and we've only got one part of the scene left. So we got one thing left. And Larry turns to me, and he says, I've got a hotel room at the Modern, and do you like wine? Uh-huh. And I could really use some company tonight. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And I forgot an important detail, which was that I took my wedding ring off earlier, because the nurse is not married. I am married to that guy back there. Anyway, so no wedding ring. I say yes, but my intuition is like, hang on, let's talk about this. And I'm like, yeah, what's going on? He seems lonely. Yeah. Do you think we should help him? Yeah. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna help Larry. So I run during this break to the assistant, to the director, and I say, hey, so Larry just told me that he doesn't want to be alone tonight. And I think we should bring a bunch of people back to the Modern, because I think I'm not sure why he told me in particular, but I'm telling you, because I know that you know how to get the word out. And she's like, okay. So I'm like, I have helped. We go back we do the remaining part of the scene. I say my line, "Get down from there." And that's a wrap. Yeah, thank you. That's a wrap. I go down the long hallway, I'm getting all my stuff, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to the Modern and hang out with all these cool people. And the director comes down the hall and he's like, "Hey, anybody who wants to meet back at the Modern and hang out, Larry's got some wine and we're all gonna hang out." Cool. And Larry comes up to me, kind of quietly, and he's like, "So I don't know how he got that in mind. Every director I have known is a control freak, but that is not really what I had in mind." And I'm like, "Okay." And my intuition is like, that's not what we thought. And I'm like, so what did you have in mind?" And he's like, "Well, I really just wanted to get to know you." I was like, "Uh-huh." My intuition is like, And then my intuition slammed the door and ran off. And so I was like, "Look," and he says, "So do you think you can still come?" And I'm like, "Yeah, definitely, yes." And we are walking down that long hall, but I'm not feeling the same way anymore. I know I'm missing something. And I'm starting to feel kind of hot, and he's still kind of talking and explaining and making sure I can be there, and I feel like people are looking at us. They're like, in my head, they're like, "Why is Larry talking to her?" I don't know. And I'm like, "I don't know." And so it's settled. I'm going there, and he leaves, and then I'm like, "Okay, my intuition is gone. I got to find somebody else." And so I go to the producer and I say, "So, Larry said that he had a bottle of wine at his hotel and he wanted to get to know me." And she's, "Honey, he doesn't want to get to know you. He wants to get to know you." Oh. "Go home to your husband." That's what she told me, and I did happily. So that, going home, is how I said "no soup for you" to Larry, the soup Nazi from Seinfeld. But the apology is, I go home and sleep and wake up to a voicemail that came very in the wee hours from an unknown number, and it's, "Hi, this is Larry. Gee, I think I owe you an apology. I think I was maybe flirting with you. I'm so sorry. I found out later that you were married. I never would have done that if I had known you were married. I'm so sorry. Give me a call if you want to talk about it." So I'm like, cool, we're saving that to show people later. And by now, my intuition's back, waking up, and I'm like, "Hey, so you heard the voicemail from Larry. It sounds pretty sincere. It sounds really sweet. You think he's being, genuine?" "Definitely." So that is my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. I love the idea of your catchphrase becoming "get down from there." I also love that your intuition is this kind of vague hand puppet that kind of floats over your shoulder like a guardian angel. It's very sweet. I just learned today that Bryan Cranston was in Seinfeld. I didn't remember that. He was the dentist who apparently inhaled his own gas. Sounds a little risky. Yeah. I don't know what I'd think if I went into a dentist's office and there was theremin music playing. Yeah, it sounds a little bit too close to maybe a dental drill. Yeah. All right. Do we have a slam in the slammer? Oh, tonight it's a mysterious white box. The spirits will now choose a member from the audience who has a 5-minute story inspired by the theme, The Sixth Sense. Oh, there's a whole bunch of them. Okay. This is a family audience, so we keep that in mind. Oh, this person has a lot of power with the spirits. We're going to actually meet her a little later this evening as well, because she is the director of our late night series. It's Beth Norton. Straight from a planning and zoning hearing.
Yeah, and I just put my name in there.
Okay, let's do something on top.
It's the Sixth Sense. They were listening. I'm not going to talk about the planning and zoning meeting, but I think things are going well on that front. If anybody's interested in the rezone, So this is a story of I was in college and I loved Brett Dennen in college. I don't know if you guys know who Brett Dennen is. Cheeky little redhead, peaked in like grocery store music. You've probably heard his songs. I can't think of any right now. If anybody knows any and they want to start singing to jog our memory, sing it. He's got this very kind of voice. But anyways, so my best friend in college and I were in love with Brett Dennen, and he was at the place in his career where he was sort of at like the top of the bottom, you know, like he was like playing little local venues. I went to school in Chico, California, and so he was playing in like Northern California a lot, and little college, town venues. Had a big hippie following, and he got booked at the Fillmore in San Francisco. And this was a big deal for him in his career. And so, being the groupies that we were, we took the drive from Chico, California down to the Bay Area, and in my friend's little gray Chevrolet. And the concert's probably at like, you can tell my age now. I'm like, now I think in conference terms. But the concert is probably at 9 p.m. We find a parking spot in a parking garage. I think it was in Chinatown. And it was down a few levels. We make our way to the Fillmore, which was quite a walk from where we had parked. We have a great time at the concert. It's packed in there. It's a huge moment for Brett Dennen, and we were there to witness it. And I haven't been back to the Fillmore since, but I'll just never forget it. It had these like beautiful purple drapes and this lovely chandelier. And yeah, it was a beautiful moment. I think we had smoked a lot of pot and probably had a beer or two, but we took the long walk back to where we had parked. And as we were headed into the parking garage, I noticed that there was a man standing kind of near the entrance, just standing there. And I should say a little bit about my friend Colleen. She is so fun, so the life of the party. She's one of those people that attracts a bunch of people to her, but she is oblivious of what is going on around her at all times. And she also just like walks at this breakneck speed that we would get into fights over because she has really long legs, and I had a hard time catching up with her a lot. And I was constantly out of breath whenever we would walk anywhere together. So naturally she was in front, and so she takes the turn really quickly and starts to head down the stairs. And I noticed this guy, and something in me just like, as we go to turn down the stairs, something in me tells me to turn and look again. And so I turn and I just kind of glance back over my shoulder, and when I do that, I notice that he has turned and he's looked down the street, and I see down the street there is another man, and I see that man nod. And this just like peaks my little warning bells. And then I'm chasing after Colleen down the stairs. We come out on maybe like the second or third floor down, and we're wandering through the parking garage. We're looking for our car. We can't find it. We quickly realize that it's on the next floor down. And so we're crossing the parking garage to go to the other stairwell. And I see, just before we get into that stairwell, I see that man come down that stairwell behind us. And I think, okay, if they come out in the next floor, they're definitely following us. Although it was pretty clear at that point. But you know, like as a woman, you're just like, maybe not. Like, maybe they have candy or something. And so we take the stairs and we go down and we come out on the floor where our car is. Colleen is in front of me, and you know, I'm now also walking very fast, and he, sure enough, he comes out of the stairwell behind us, and he goes, excuse me, and I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I reached in my purse. I normally carried pepper spray with me, but not that night, of course, because I think probably because we had gone to the concert and you probably couldn't bring pepper spray in there. But like out of reflex, I just reached into my purse and turned around, and he continued to advance. And I put I stuck my other hand out and I said, "Stop! Do not approach." And Colleen, who has no idea what's going on this whole time, just starts running away. And he puts his hands up in the air, and right after him, the other man that he nodded to comes out behind him, and he turns around and he goes, come on, dude, let's go. And like takes him, and they head on up the stairs. And then we both book it to the car. We're like shaking, we get in the car, we lock the doors, we scream and cry, and then like try not to fall asleep on the way home and then drive out the city. So that is my Sixth Sense story.
I've been trying to give her a poster all year, so here you go. It's only good for tonight, but you can save it.
I'm gonna put it on my wall.
Put it on your wall.
Yeah.
And now Alejandro is going to play a Brett Dennen number. It's Wild Child. Yeah, do you remember it? Do you remember it now?
You're welcome. Thank you.
It was really close.
Not bad.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Beth. And don't forget to sign our release over here. Thank you for your story. Yeah, I think that I have a pretty strong intuition, a strong voice inside, but so often I don't listen to it. One time I remember clearly in college, we've had this campus-wide murder game where you got the card of the person you were supposed to kill, and they couldn't kill you in class, and there were a couple other rules, and one of the ways you could defend yourself is you could spray them with water. And I left my dorm room and walked down the hall, and I noticed a guy in the hallway, and I thought, is that my assassin? And I stood at the drinking fountain in the hallway, and I just kind of had the water on, and I was looking at him, and he was looking at me, and he started moving closer and closer and closer, and I was kind of like, Do I splash him? And he kind of looked straight ahead and kept an even gait, and so my voice was saying, to use Brooke's method, hit him with water! Hit him with water! Hit him now! Slap the water! And I just kind of leaned in and took a cool sip as he tagged my back and killed me. Didn't listen. Happened when I was a little kid, too. I didn't learn my lesson. I remember playing with my cousin, and I was climbing in a slide, and she was right behind me, and my little voice said, she's gonna pull your pants down. And that's what happened. Didn't listen. Did not listen. Our next featured storyteller is a person who really listens. Please welcome for the first time to Story Night, Mr. David Tuttle.
Well, I'm going to tell you about the best psychic reading that I ever heard. It changed my life and changed my wife's life. We were in Sedona, Arizona on vacation, and at nice red rocks and everything, and a psychic on every corner. But we found this New Age Center, which is an old building, and I had seen a flyer in there that on a Sunday night they were going to have a meeting or a group meeting to meet your relatives on the other side. So I thought, well, that'd be kind of fun to do on a Sunday night. And that afternoon it rained, and there was a big puddle. We went out, and it was about 6 o'clock at night when it was starting, and we had to jump over a big puddle to get in the building, and nobody else was there. And finally, the psychic came down. It was a young woman, probably 28 years old, maybe, and she walked us. She opened the door and let us in, and went upstairs to her room. Had 3 seats, and we were waiting for other people to come, but nobody came. So she said she'd give us both a reading and read us both at the same time, and just have an hour reading for $20 a piece, which I couldn't imagine a better deal than that. And she started explaining that she was an art teacher, and she had a degree in art, and she worked in a art studio for a while, and then all she saw was over her forehead when people came to see her, the states where they lived, and things like that. And so she thought she would go back and be a psychic, and she also said that she had worked with police departments and found dead people, but that depressed her, so that's when she went to the art, and now she's back to being a psychic. So we felt very fortunate to have her, and she was bringing in, she had never done this before, as the reading began, she was bringing in deceased relatives from my side on the left, deceased relatives from my wife's side on the right. She was looking up and to the side, and she was hearing from some, and she'd see some, and some would talk to her. And one that came in was my father, and he was a conservative guy. He said, he's standing at the back, and he says, I have many hats. And I said, I had about a dozen hats, because I pick up a hat every time I go somewhere. And he says, the psychic said, your dad, or she said, do you play basketball? And I said, well, not really. All that jumping to get rebounds is hard on your knees, so I gave that up. And she said, well, your dad's over there, and he's taking his arm way back and coming back like this. And that morning, I had been swimming on my back in the timeshare pool, and there's a basketball and a hoop on the side, and I was just making baskets that morning. So that was an important event for me, because my father had crossed 16 years prior to that, and no communication except for a license plate we had once seen that he had an R35T license plate because he got a good job promotion at that age, and that's the one he had throughout his entire life, or the life at home. But this one, that meant that he'd actually, it's like having another conversation with your father, because when he died a couple of days after Thanksgiving, and it was, well, he was kind of a quiet guy, and didn't say a lot. But at that point, I was only about 5 years into my above your normal religion studies, so I thought, what happened to him? But when my mother crossed about 16 years later, by that time I knew that she would be all right. And she came through also in the reading, and she said, the psychic said, is your mother very religious? And I said, yeah, she was a devout Lutheran. And he said, well, she's coming over with all these religious symbols, and she's got a tiara around her head. It says, I made it. So I knew she was okay. And I get the similar things of, lights popping and out or something when I turn them on, and stuff like that, and a little chill when I was thinking about her or something. So I knew she was still around. But then during the reading, the psychic said, he said, mentioned Jim, which is my brother-in-law who died, my sister's husband, and he said that he crossed over my mother, and he had crossed over 5 years before she did. And then she said that there's a dog, a jumping dog, and that was a Springer Spaniel they had, which was quite an unusual dog. It was the only one we ever knew. But he said, the psychic said that the dog met Jim when he crossed over. So this has kept on going with all kinds of good messages. The one was very interesting was the psychic said, I see an oyster, and I couldn't think of anything, and my wife said, pearl. And I said, pearl? Oh yeah, my grandmother. She died before I was born and before my sister was born, and so I didn't have any thing to relate to her. But a couple months before that, my sister and my wife were talking and going over some historical records in our family, and my wife said something about Pearl, and my sister said, who's Pearl? So that's why she came, and she actually came in on my wife's side instead of my side, and I was thinking, oh, why didn't you come in on my side? You're my relative, But that didn't happen. Let's see. My mother and my wife had a bunch of people come through to her favorite aunt who died when she was a junior, and her mother. But the guy, her uncle, who was called Frederick, and I knew him, he seemed like a nice guy, but Jane said she always teased him. He always teased her when she was a child. And he bumped into our reading about 3 times. He'd say Frederick. The psychic says Frederick. Jane didn't want to talk to him. And then he'd say Paul Frederick, because that was the name of his son. And, and Jane was just about ready, quit. I want to talk to my other relatives, and then he came in a 3rd time. Same thing. But finally, Jane got her mother and her favorite aunt, and she was crying through the whole reading, and I had a big smile on my face. But, and that ended that reading, I believe. And then the next night, we had another one with, and this time it was a group reading with, and only 6 people showed up with that one. And my grandmother showed up again, and she said, the psychic said that, and this is a different psychic, she was a blonde woman, nice, friendly person, but young. Everybody's young in this New Age center. But she said, Pearl said that your grandmother's here, and she says that she's an angel. And I thought, I was kind of skeptical about that, because I figured that angels have wings, and my grandmother couldn't be an angel. And she said, well, didn't everybody always call me an angel? And that's why when we talked to my mother, she would always say that Pearl was an angel. She had 10 kids and helped my mother when she married my father and all this, so that was nice. And then some more relatives came through, and but they said I should go home. When we went home, I should clean out my toolbox, and I would find 12 screwdrivers. And my toolbox was a mess. My father was a manager of the lumber company, and everything was very neat. and all his tools were straight, and I had nothing to do with that. So I went home, and I counted all my screwdrivers, and I had 11 screwdrivers, and I thought, well, the psychic was wrong. And I go out in the garage, and there's the paint can in the corner of the garage, and that was the 12th screwdriver. So then I knew that the psychic was right again. But and we get messages all the time. The sole license reference, license plates, numbers and letters. It's every time we go on vacation, the cars beside us have that same, they have them G, B, T. What my mother, father, and the next car is my mother-in-law, and they're all running around together now. It's so it's you're never alone out there. So you just have to remember that whenever you're out and about or anywhere, that your relatives are still there, and you can find them pretty easily if you're looking for them. That's it.
And David actually has a book that he wrote that will be out in the lobby during intermission, and if you're interested in that, you can meet up with him. It's called the Soul Licensed Tips and Tales. And interesting enough, a psychic told him to write it. So there we go. I had a tarot card reading done, Viking tarot cards on Schneifelsness Peninsula, which I learned has a lot of psychic energy. I was told that there was a rainbow bridge which connected Schneifelsness to Mount Shasta. I don't know if that would have been faster than Iceland Airlines, but it wasn't available to me. I remember two specific things from my card reading. One was that I should share my knowledge, and the other was that I am a sex addict. I'm still trying to figure that out, but in the meantime, let's have another slammer. I've decided the spirit has moved me. I'm gonna throw it in there. I don't remember which card that was. She did, though. She asked me to shuffle the tarot cards, and my family is a pinnacle family, so we know how to shuffle. These cards were a little bigger than I was used to, but man, I shuffled those cards, and she looked aghast and was like, "Only an American." All right, let's bring up Stacy Beam, I think it says. Stacy Beam? Stacy? Are you on your way, being floated up with the theremin? I forgot to mention that when your time is up, you will feel a spirit moving closer to you. You might even feel a weight coming down on your shoulder. I don't see Stacy. Is she... Stacy, are you moving up through the room? We have to consult the spirit world. What's happening with Stacy? Oh, okay. She's crossing over. She's coming over the rainbow bridge. All right. With great enthusiasm. I feel like there was a little powwow at her table there. Little consultation that happened. Like, wait a minute. Stacy, did you write your name on this ticket? Oh, the spirit. An evil spirit wrote her name on this ticket. I generally tell people, please only write your own name on it. I forgot to say that tonight, and you're the one who suffers for that. Sorry. Are we gonna? It's a sign. Okay. Are we gonna be okay?
I think so.
All right, you got 5 minutes.
Okay. Please be kind. I was not prepared. this dear friend of mine, Mary, and I went on a trip to Australia, and the ship we went on was a very old ship. And the very first night, we were both in our little bunks, and in the middle of the night, Mary jumps up and says, Stacy, somebody just spooned me. And we're in the middle of the ocean on a ship. And I'm like, that's not possible. But of course, we're opening the doors. And, it's like, unless somebody's this big, can fit through a porthole, and nothing. And she's like, I'm not joking. Seriously, somebody spooned me. So I'm like, it's been a long trip. You're tired. Go back to bed. Well, the next night, I'm in the bed, and I start having this dream, and I start smelling this very interesting masculine smell. It wakes me up, and I'm like, there's somebody in the room. There's somebody in the room. I'm like, Mary, there's somebody in the room. So we're wandering through the room, and I'm like, it's coming from right here. I can feel this person. There's somebody in this room. Nothing. We can't find anybody. Nothing. The next day, we go down to the porter, and we say, we need to just check out of this room. We don't know what's going on, but there's something definitely happening, and it's freaking us out. The guy was not even the least bit surprised. No surprise whatsoever. And he's like, sorry, it's completely sold out. There's no other rooms we can put you in. You're just going to have to make do. Well, the ship we were on, one half of it was a writers' convention, which is what Mary and I were on. The other half was what I called woo-woo people. So I was talking to the porter again and said, could you recommend somebody that's in the woo-woo side that we could talk to about what just happened? And he's like, yeah, sure. Go over there. This gal that's over there, she talks to dead people. So we work our way over to this gal, and unfortunately he was pointing to the wrong gal. We became friends with this wonderful gal from Australia who doesn't do dead people, but she said, the person you do need to talk to is over here. Her name is Debbie. She's sitting over at the bar. So Mary and I walk our way over there, and as we're walking along, Debbie, who turns and looks at us, she turns and says, well, what are you three doing here tonight? We're like, what? And she's like, yeah. She's like, oh, wait. She goes, I'm new at this. You can't see him. Like, no, we can't. What? And she's like, oh, yeah, that's Sven. And we're like, okay, wait, backtrack. And she says, Sven, what's the story? And he's like, they're in my room. This is my job. I comfort women that are in my room. So we're like, well, since we can't get another room, can you tell Sven to get a different room? Because we don't want to have anything to do with this. And she's like, well, Sven, what's the deal? And he's like, well, their loss. And she watches him, and he walks by the bar, and there's a girl sitting at the bar, and all of a sudden she's like, whoa! Off he goes. So Mary and I are like, okay, this is freaky. We're lighting candles. We're putting salt across the doors. We're doing whatever we can do so Sven doesn't come back. But we kept thinking this was just this weird thing. Well, the next day we go and we talk to the front desk, and he's like, oh yeah, this ship used to be da-da-da-da-da, and they changed the name, and this man who was in this bunk actually was like the co-captain, and he was very good looking, and apparently you were in his room. So he didn't bother us again, but that was, I don't know, is exactly a Sixth Sense story, but I wasn't really prepared for that. But that's my story. That was kind of bizarre, so thank you.
And Sven would like to meet you over at the story booth right over here. Isn't that just like a guy to die and then inhabit a cabin and say it's his job to comfort women? I mean, wow. I knew we had a lot of work to do here. I just didn't realize we have so much work to do in the afterlife as well. Oh, so much to do. So much to do. All right, I didn't tell anyone I was doing this tonight, so we'll see how it goes. I would like to acknowledge some people in our Story Night family who will be crossing over, or rather terming out of our board of directors. So, can I get some people up here just so we can see your faces again? Our former studio and sponsor coordinator, Gretchen Arguedas. Our former treasurer, Terry Lawrence. And our departing president of the board, Carolyn Valaket. We just need to give them some acknowledgement here. Hi, come on up. Yes. Thank you so much. That 4 years went by real quick, didn't it? Yeah, it just snapped by. Now, as you know, because you have been on our board, we are not rolling in riches like we used to be. So normally we had lavish gifts that we would give our departing board members, but like a what? A pet rock. Yes, we did give a pet rock away one year. We spared no expense. Tonight, however, we are only giving gifts of the spirit, so, and the applause of the audience. Thank you. If one of you is moved and you just want to say a couple of things, there is a microphone right there on the floor. If nobody wants to say anything, they're all backing away. Yeah. Do you want to? If you want to say just a little.
Is this on? Yes. Hi, I'm Carolyn Valaket. I just want to say thank you, Jodi, and the rest of the board that we've served with. We're kind of the last three of the COVID era, so that was fun, super fun. It was great, a great experience. I highly recommend it to anyone if you'd like to volunteer and get involved with the organization and or join the board. It's really an amazing experience. So, and Jodi, you're a huge part of that, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. And Gretchen, you can actually speak with out in the lobby during intermission because she is supporting story subscriptions out there. She has a fancy QR code that will link you in, and so you can talk with her during intermission and she'll get you started on that. Or if you want to get a head start yourself, that text story sub to 44321 will take you there as well. Thank you so much, you guys. I'm going to miss you, but you'll still be here sometimes. All right. I am getting a message from an entity. It's our season sponsor, the Chandro Group. And Alejandro, this is usually where I ask our guest musicians if they have anything appropriate that goes with insurance. So, here we go. I'll let you start. Yeah. The Chandro Group knows there is a difference between offering your employees insurance and benefits. Just one benefit. From our first conversation to day-to-day benefits management, we use data-driven and culture-focused methods for designing your benefits portfolio. We know no other... We know no other program in a business can impact employees' financial, emotional, and physical well-being more than employee benefits. Thank you to... Thank you to the Chandro Group. All right. We're going to take about a 10-minute break before our next act. You can visit with David in the lobby. You can visit with Gretchen in the lobby. And here on the stage, Alejandro is going to move to some other instruments that he's brought with him. I believe the song bowl and the didgeridoo, maybe some more theremin. So we'll see you in about 10 minutes. Refresh your drinks, and we'll be back for more stories. Welcome back to the Sixth Sense. I hope you all are attuning. before we left, we got to say goodbye to some board members who are passing on. Can I get the current board members just to come up here for a moment so we can celebrate them and see those faces? We have Nathan Pittman coming up. We have Darcy, maybe Carrie Bruce is coming up. Ruth Schwartz, yes. And Shannon, if you're here. Let's just see these new faces that are carrying us forward. This isn't in my notes to say this yet, but this show is our 13th birthday tonight, our 13th birthday. Talk more about that a little later. Shannon, are you still coming in? Oh, here she is. All right, perfect. Just moving through the room. And our incoming, she gets hugs on her way up, yes. So these are the people behind the scenes who are moving us forward. And some of them have been with us a little longer. Darcy was just added, and she's still out in the hallway. No, here she is. Come up here, Darcy. Just added. And Nathan is our new secretary. Carrie is our new treasurer. And Ruth, who has been with us as a story slammer, a slammer of the year, a featured storyteller, is our incoming president. Do you just want to say a quick hello to people?
Hello.
Now, see, I knew that was going to be quick because she didn't even take the microphone out of my hand. All right, so applause for our incoming. Moving on. Thank you very much. Oh, our featured storytellers are so well behaved. They're already up here on stage. Very good. Not with us tonight is Courtney Maxwell Shea, who had a last-minute change. And now we're going to start the show with another slammer. We have lots of names here to choose from, so I want to get to as many of those as we can fit in tonight. Alejandro, did you want to say anything about the song bowl or the didgeridoo that you were playing during the break?
Oh, the Tibetan singing bowl and the didgeridoo, they're also instruments that I play. I don't claim to be a musician, so to speak. And my brother's a professional classical guitarist, so he'll say that I'm not really a musician.
That does make it harder, yeah.
It is more challenging. It is more challenging. But I do play some very odd instruments. So there's the theremin, of course. I have a didgeridoo and a Tibetan singing bowl. I also have a crackle box, which is very rare, but I couldn't find that today. So maybe another time. So yeah, I like to just create sound sculptures. And I just enjoy creating music that people find not only enjoyable, but entertaining.
Great. And Alejandro's been a storyteller with us both at Story Night and also Story Late Night. Thank you. All right. And you know what? I think this is a story subscriber. I feel like I recognize this name. So accompanying this person on the theremin, next to our microphone is Cynthia Wallace. Whoa. And I've seen this name come across. I think isn't the middle name Yee? Cynthia Yee Wallace? I see that's so much more fun to say. Cynthia Yee Wallace. It's kind of like, it's got its own like celebration right in the middle. All right, 5 minutes to share a story inspired by, is this your first time sharing a story? Wow, that's very exciting. All right, here you go.
Okay, so I'm fortunate enough that I have a bunch of ride or die girlfriends. One ride or die girlfriend in particular is named Jennifer Schindele. We have been friends since college. Everything she possesses is what I always wanted. She's very calm. She thinks before she speaks. She's very introverted. She's very deliberate and strategic. I have big energy and I'm much more expressive. So I'm always the booker planner and Jen is always the ride or die that comes with me. For example, I had been smoking to take the bar because I was very stressed about that. And she's like, there's an extra race if you want to run Dry Creek. And I was not a runner. I'm hardly a walker. But I was like, how hard can it be? Dry Creek, it sounds easy. Well, it's up a hill. It's like we were so last that the four-wheeler was going back and forth, waiting for us to like get going. And I finally said to her after about a fourth of the mile in, I'm like, for the sake of our friendship, leave me. You must leave me. She finished in the middle. So in 2010, her dad died, and I had been watching a lot of Long Island Medium. And so I was like, oh, Jen, I found this psychic medium. She lives in a condo by the mall. It's like $125, but if we go, you can talk to your dad. My grandma's passed. Let's go. And she's like, okay. So we go, and we walk in, and she has like these bowls, and there's incense, and she's smoking, which no judgment, but blowing it on us, which was our first red flag. And we sit down on her couch, and she's like, and Jen's there to talk to her dad. I'm there to talk to my grandma if she shows up. And she says, okay, you're here to see a long-lost young woman. We're like, no. She's like, okay, you're here to see a young male that you have unfinished business with. We're like, no. She's like, okay, does someone that you know wear a hat? And I was like, well, my grandma used to wear scarves. She's like, your grandma is here. And then I'm like, okay. So long story short, she keeps asking these questions, and she's not a real psychic or a psychic medium, and we didn't end up talking to her dad or my grandma. And I was laughing so hard that I was chewing on my latte cup, and we left. We paid our $125, which I think she gave us like a 10% discount because we looked so indignant. And so fast forward 3 weeks later, I find another psychic medium who's over in this shamanic healing center by the mall. And I'm like, Jen, you gotta go. This time it's totally free. We'll sit in the back. It's donation only. If it doesn't work out, we'll just walk out. And she's like, oh, okay. So she goes with me, and there's 5 people in the room. There's no sitting in the back. It's in a circle. We're on these couches. But it ended up being actually a very genuine reading by a woman named Krista Lyon, who owns Nomadic Spiritual Healing, and Jen had a wonderful reading from her husband, or from her dad. I connected with my grandmother. So the moral of the story is my intuition and my sixth sense isn't always the best. I'm a little bit impulsive in picking my events, but my sixth sense have always been very good about picking my ride or dies through and including my beautiful husband. So that's when I can rely on that. So that's my story.
Thank you, Cynthia. And the Long Island Medium. I lived in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, and we had a neighbor who had a psychic who, I don't know if I have all the details right, they had some kind of metal passport because the CIA and the FBI used them, and their passport didn't require any visas. This doesn't sound real, does it? I never saw the metal passport, and to be honest, and also, wouldn't that set off the security alarm every time you walk through? That doesn't sound right. Anyway, I remember she was on maybe it was a Long Island Medium. She was on some psychic show, and one of the things they had to do is match the dog owner with their dog, and and she got it wrong. And her friends were asking her, like, geez, why did you get that wrong? And she's like, the spirits don't care whose dog belongs to who. So, but living in Brooklyn, there's a lot more visibility for psychics than there is in Boise, Idaho. The psychics here are very quiet and polite. In Brooklyn, they are right there on the sidewalk, and some of them have really heavy mascara, very big makeup, and they sit in a window with a drapey curtain, and they look out at you as you're walking down the sidewalk. And what always kind of made me jump is I'd be walking, and just out of the corner of my eye, see them jump up, and they would run to their door, and they would gesture to me like, someone needs to talk to you, and they'd be waving me in. And you know what? I never did go in. I think that time I was listening to the inner voice. I was like, no, do not go in there, do not go in there. All right, we've reached our final featured storyteller. And, I started coming to Story Night just as an audience member back in 2014. And this person was one of the volunteers who was almost at every Story Night show through 2015. I remember in 2016 when we moved to Jump, he was here. But this is his first time to the Story Night microphone as a featured storyteller. Please welcome Mike Krause.
All right, so let's deal with the elephant in the room first, which is me, on two levels. One, you're probably asking, why is that guy wearing such a really tight shirt? This actually was an outfit I was wearing during one of my stories back in 2010, so I figured I should bring it back. The other part of the elephant in the room is again, me. I am 6'5", 240 pounds. And it's the reason I'm sitting here. Jodi thought that I might scare people in the front if I was actually standing up. Just kidding, Jodi. So my story really is about intuition and about the amalgamation and collection of experiences. Oh my gosh, the psychic thing is disturbed. It's okay. Anyway, so my height. I'm big. And is it still? I don't know what you guys are doing.
It's a different story. I get a little flustered.
Okay, again, let's try this again. I'm really tall. And this actually plays into it because I've always been tall. I grew up here in Idaho, and one of the things that happens when you're my size growing up is you start taking your physical safety for granted. You kind of think at points you're invincible, and that happened to me until 2013, September of 2013, when I found myself in a bar in Sumter, Oregon, as I'm walking around going to a group of friends saying, we need to leave now. But to kind of backtrack, I have to start back with knowing that I never would have said that if it wasn't for my experience in Botswana in 2010. So 3 years earlier, I was in the Peace Corps, hence the jacket. I was serving in Botswana, which is in southern Africa, and I was doing public health work, and I was specifically working with orphans and vulnerable children, and working in a kind of like a community center / boys and girls club. And on March 10th of 2010, I'm kind of wrapping up my day, and it's about 5:30 at night. Okay, I think we're good. It's about 5:30 at night, and it's March, so it's in the southern hemisphere, we're going from basically fall into winter, and so it's dusk. And this is the same time I would leave every single night from the center where I would go. And I'm walking out of the main entrance of this organization that's completely covered by chain link fence. And I have about a half dozen kids. Jeez. I'm just gonna hold it like this. I'm gonna do some blues music. So I'm walking. I need this prop too, because I'm wearing this. Okay. Getting ready for school. So in 2010, I'm leaving the center where I worked, and I have about a half dozen kids strewn on my back, on my shoulders. I'm carrying some are wrapped around my leg. I'm trying to navigate getting out of this place. My house is about a half mile down the road from the center where I work. And it's not really that unusual to see a whole bunch of people, men, women, children, walking along the streets. There's not a lot of public transit. There's not a lot of cars going through this area in Botswana where I live. And so I make my way home, and like I said, it's dusk. So as I'm heading down the main highway, which goes in and out of Francistown, which is the city in which I lived, I head down this main private drive, which is the street where I lived. And in there, it's kind of a cul-de-sac with about 10 different houses, or what we called compounds. And these are really compounds, and I'll explain that in a second. So I get going, and I'm about halfway home, walking down the street, and there's a gentleman to my side walking next to me. And he just comes up and he taps me and he says, "Hey man, do you live in that house over there?" And my Peace Corps training kicked in, and I realized that we don't really tell people where we live. As a foreigner in this land, you basically kind of just shrug it off. And what my common response was, I would wave my hand in the air and I'd be like, yeah, I live over there. He ends up walking forward and kind of passes me. I'm just enjoying the evening. I'm about halfway home. Beautiful African summer night in the bush. I go another 20 yards and I come across the same gentleman who just asked me where I lived. And he's looking down at his flip phone. And I just keep walking, and he's kind of walking in stride with me. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I have this major pain, this burning sensation in my left eye. And it turns out that I didn't realize at the time, because all I can feel is my eye is pulsating and is basically shut and tearing. And what happened is the gentleman who was standing next to me had punched me in the face. And I didn't realize it. And I probably didn't realize it either because he was about a foot shorter than me. And normally I'm not in a position where I'm too concerned about my safety. But what he did was, and what he intended to do was basically blind me in both of my eyes. And he meant to hit me on the bridge of my nose and blind me in both eyes. But because of the height difference, he only hit me in the left eye. But I'm blinded at this point. And the other thing that he did is when he came up, he swung his arm up and hit me. He opened up his fist, and inside his fist was a very fine sand and silt mixed with cayenne pepper. And so all of a sudden, I can't see a damn thing. This eye is completely glued shut. In the moment, what I'm thinking is, this is that flight or flight moment. And what am I going to do? Because it wasn't just this guy. He had 9 other friends with him. And as I'm walking down this road to get to my house, there is a cement wall behind me. And it's a 7-foot high cement wall made of cinder block cement. And on the top is electric fence covered in razor wire. And then there's broken glass embedded in the top of the wall to prevent people from scaling these walls. This is how all the compounds along my street are. This is how all the compounds in Southern Africa are, whether you go to Zimbabwe, South Africa, Botswana. So all the houses are like this. And so this gentleman is in the middle of the road, and his friends come running up, and they encircle me in a half circle. And I back myself up to the wall. And the first thing I do is I swing my backpack over my shoulder as if to feel if I have something in there. But I had actually taken about everything that I had normally in my backpack out that day and put a soccer ball in there instead, because I was playing with kids. Upon realizing this, I put the backpack back on because I realize it's going to be a hindrance. If I have to run, I need it tight to my body. So I can't see out of one of my eyes, and there are 10 men with knives and rocks surrounding me. And the first thing I do is I lunge at them. And almost in a uniform fashion, they pulsate back about 2 feet. And then they start coming back in again. And I step back and I feel for the wall behind me. And I'm scanning with one eye and looking to see if I can see everybody, that no one has flanked me. So I lunge for a second time, and they all pulsate back another 2 feet. And then they come back in closer. All of a sudden, I turn my head, and to my left, I can see 2 headlights coming towards me down the road. And so I lunge for a third time. And as I lunge, I actually start running towards the car that I see. And my hands are up high in front of me, just like I am trying to flag down this car. When I reach the car, I slam my hands down onto the front cover of the car. And I see the window of the driver's side come down, and I yell, "They're trying to kill me." At the moment, the driver yells out to me, "Get in." I make my way to the passenger side, and as soon as I get in, I try to close the door, and before the door's even shut, my new hero is speeding off, trying to run down the assailants. We get to a vacant lot right next to the wall where I was pinned up against. Now, this vacant lot is a corner lot, and it's dark at this point. And it's a vacant lot that is filled with garbage and dirt mounds and old cement and cactus. It's been vacant for years. And because it's dark, all 10 assailants hide into this empty lot, even with the headlights of the car in front of them, and we can't find them. It's like they vanished. So I hear the swearing of my friend, my hero, next to me in some foreign language I don't understand. And then he turns to me and says, "Where do you need to go, my friend?" And I say, "I have a Zimbabwean friend who lives 2 blocks from here. Please take me to their house." So he does a 3-point turn and immediately zips off and goes down the street and gets to my friend's house, which is also covered in razor wire. We get to the junction box, and it buzzes my friends, and they say yes, and my new hero says, "I have your friend Mike here. He needs your help." They open the gate, and we drive through. And as soon as we get to the front door, I peel open the front door, and I fall out of the passenger side. And I'm crawling on my hands and knees. My eye is burning. In fact, I don't even know if I have an eye at this point. I thought maybe it had actually been dislodged, destroyed. I can't see out of it. It's completely sealed shut. My friends help me into their house, and they take me into their bathroom. And immediately I go to the bathtub and I put my head under the faucet, and for the next 10 minutes, I turn on high and I'm trying to rinse out anything and everything that is in my eye. For the next year, I went to therapy, surprise. And what's really funny is I wasn't angry, I wasn't scared. I was really pissed at myself. I was angry that I didn't see the signs. I was angry that I didn't have any intuition to warn me that this could have happened. Our Peace Corps training taught us to be aware of our surroundings, and I took it for granted. So I come back, I do 3 more years in the Peace Corps in Botswana, and I come back to Idaho in June of 2013. 3 months later, I am driving to Sumter, Oregon with some friends for a wedding. Now, Sumter, Oregon, if you don't know, is 2 hours roughly outside of Baker City, this small mountain town. It has a population of about 200 people. I like to think of it as the Oregon version of Idaho City. So we drive into town, myself and my 2 friends, and it's about 5 o'clock. Now, Sumter is really a small town, and there's basically one thoroughfare that cuts through the entire town. There's one hotel at this time and one restaurant/bar, and it actually was called a saloon. And so as we're waiting for the rest of the wedding party, for the same-sex wedding that we're attending in Sumter, Oregon, as we're waiting our hotel, get everything set up, around 6 o'clock or so, we end up all crossing the street to go get some dinner at this bar. And when we walk in, the first thing you see is a pool table, and there's a couple gentlemen playing pool. Then in the center of this establishment, there is a U-shaped bar where there's about 10 patrons. And on the far right-hand side of the establishment, there's a bunch of dining tables and chairs. Most of the wedding party goes to the dining area and sits. I go straight to the bar. I'm not an alcoholic, I swear. I sit at the bar for the next hour, listening. And when that hour is done, after the conversations that I heard, and after the gentleman sitting at the very end of the bar gets up and exits the bar, and I see the door shut behind him, I get up from where I'm seated, and I walk around to where my friends and the rest of the wedding party are, and I say to them, "We need to leave now." I exit the bar, and in moments, I see everybody piling out, locals included, and I didn't say this very loud. As I walk outside of the bar, I walk across the highway, again, that one main strip that goes through the city. And I stand in the middle of the highway, and I look to my right, and about a half mile down the road, I can see the brake lights of a pickup truck. And then I can see that pickup truck do a 3-point turn, and then its headlights are now facing me. And I turn to everybody that's in my vicinity, and I say, "Get out of the road, get out of the way." That truck comes down the highway going 50, 55, 60, 65 miles an hour, veers off the road, and slams into the bar. As soon as all the timbers and the roofing encapsulate the cab of this truck, I run over and I check on the driver. And I reach in at the driver's side and I put my hand on his shoulder and I say, "Are you okay?" He's got blood on his forehead and he's completely disoriented. At that moment, the owner of the bar rushes out of the bar and pushes me out of the way. And he reaches in through the cab and he grabs the gentleman who's driving. And he says, "What the hell are you doing? What were you thinking?" What was he doing? Exactly what he said he was going to do when he was sitting at the bar. And when I heard him say, "I'm going to run my truck into this car, into this bar, and kill every last one of them." So in my daily life, I'm an imposter syndrome coach and a workplace culture consultant. And a lot of my work with my clients revolves around dealing with emotions and processing emotions and experiences and experiencing them in that moment and reflecting on them and processing them so that we can use them in our intuition for later experiences. And I had to use my intuition that night in Sumter, Oregon. I had to listen to that voice in my head that said, "Hey, Mike, it's 2013. Hey, Mike, you're traveling to Sumter, Oregon, this small town in Eastern Oregon, to attend a same-sex wedding. Hey, Mike, are you listening to the conversations happening at the end of the bar? Is there anything funny that stands out about what you're hearing? Hey, Mike, do you remember back in 2010 in Botswana what happened to you and how vulnerable you felt and how you felt afterwards? Hey, Mike, thank you."
Mike, we have this poster for you. It is the same size as all the others. It just looks a little different next to you for some reason. All right, it is our 13th birthday, and often at this show, which is the last show of our flagship season. Actually, is Jessica Holmes, are you here tonight, Jessica? There, she's back there, Jessica Holmes. So Jessica's one of the founders and the original host of Story Night for over 6 years and has still doing our copywriting. Thank you, Jessica. Can you believe it? We're a teenager. We got braces, we got pimples, we got armpit hair, awkward microphones. Yeah. So normally at this show, we have had a thing where the screen comes down and people text to give and the bar goes up. And this year we've not done that, obviously, but what we are doing is focusing that energy on Idaho Gives, which is May 1st through May 4th. So if you go to idahogives.org and search for Story Night, you will find us, and we have different categories celebrating our 13 years. And so we'd appreciate that support if you're able to give that to us. If you want to just do a one-time gift, you can also just text Story to 44321. And tonight we challenged our friend here, Alejandro, to play us Happy Birthday on the theremin. Well, wait and see.
Yeah, hold on. Okay, let me. Where's G?
Yeah, you know the song. Happy birthday.
Okay, hang with me. Hold on. Here we go.
So this is how they sang it at the bar in Sumter.
I had G yesterday.
Always looking for the G. Oh, that's the late night show. Sorry.
Okay, here we go. Just let me warm up for a second. It's close.
Yes.
Well, I'm almost done.
happy birthday in the Dorian key, I think. Dorian mode. This is probably why we don't hear them with the Boise Philharmonic.
Takes a lot of work.
Takes a lot of, yeah. Well, I was drifting into late night mode there. I'm going to ask Beth Norton to come back up because tonight on your tables, if you've seen this card, well, this side was written by Jessica Holmes, who you just met, or meet again. This side was done by our graphic designer, Julia Green. And this person right here, I'll give you this one, is responsible for the themes that you see. So, Beth, tell us a little bit about what we have coming up for summer, for late night.
A real fun set, if you look at the postcards in front of you, for Story Late Night, starting in June. The American Dreams, with the S falling off and a house burning to the ground, and an overloaded sheep with Bitcoin on their iPhone. So that's what the summer is going to be like.
This is the bougiest our sheep has ever looked.
Yeah, she has classed it up with some style.
Yeah.
The theme for June is marriage, as one of the classic American dreams. We're looking for stories of obviously the failures of the American dreams, but maybe some of the surprise successes. We just want the nuance, I don't know, I like the dark stuff. So this is my pitch for you to come and tell your story about marriage. Although in June we do focus on the LGBTQIA community, so particularly if you have embarked on the journey of marriage or whatever that means for you and you are from that community, we would love to hear from you. I am excited to say that I have already booked our first storyteller for
cool.
that. Yeah, it's going to be Lori Vallow. We're going to zoom her in. She's got a good story.
Wow. Did you meet her at the zoning meetings tonight?
And I don't have any other awful jokes about July is going to be Independence. We are working on Will Smith for that. And
gird your loins.
And then August will be ownership. So if you would like to tell a story, I would love to hear from you. I think there's information on here and how to do that, or just come out and watch. It's going to be at the Women's Ward of the Old Penitentiary, which is also fitting for the theme of all of these things, but especially marriage. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Beth. And tickets to that show actually just went live at 8 o'clock. So it sent me an email even saying, hey, congratulations, your show is available. All right, let's get back to a slammer. And if you were a couple that was married in Sumter, Oregon, then Mike is your friend, that would be an interesting story. Here we go. For a second, I thought you were playing the Here Comes the Bride for the marriage theme. But
I was about to, but...
I got it. I got the intention. All right, sir. All right, I'm not even going to read it. I'm just going to feel the name. Okay, I got it. Number 658731. All right. I don't think this person has been at our mic in a while, at least. If maybe the first time. Mike Adams. Here he comes. Our interpreters are passing on the torch here. Hey, Mike. Is this your first time sharing a story here? All right, welcome. You got 5 minutes for The Sixth Sense.
I used to drive cab out here and other places, so if it's weird, no. All I know is one night, the bars were starting to close, so everybody goes to the local strip club. And so therefore, you got a whole bunch of drunk soldiers and other people having fun, enjoying themselves. Well, one night, I was leaving the strip club and looked across the street, and there was this guy by himself. I just said, something weird about this. There's something wrong. Because normally when soldiers go to a strip club or any kind of club, they only go in groups of 4 or 5 or 6 or so. So they're all buddy, getting drunk and making sure to get home safe and such. And I said, something's odd about this. So I said, hey, guy, you need a cab? And he says, yeah, I need a cab. So we headed back to post. And I used to go on post a lot just because, hey, I was a soldier myself at times. So. And he said, hey, let's stop at McDonald's. Okay. Well, McDonald's is kind of on the way, so it's one of those places people like to go to eat. And, hopefully that's what they're there to eat, not to get drugs or something like that. Which maybe whenever in a while I'm going to go there. McDonald's has got some strange habits. At least we didn't. No, that's another story. Well, we went to the drive-thru, and as we were leaving the drive-thru, he turns to me and says, "Where's Marvy at? Where's Marvy at?" Okay, sir, there's just me and you in this cab. Something tells me that something's weird here. So I said, "Okay, sir. Well, there's only me." Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So we went back to main gate, and we were polite to the MTs, which is a good thing to do. A lot of times infantry soldiers are beep, 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 MP, beep, beep, MPs. Well, everybody was polite. Well, I got him back to his barracks and let him go inside and go upstairs. And I said, like I said, I need to talk to CQ. CQ is charge of quarters. They're the guys that sit at the front desk and make sure everybody, when they get back, they're okay, that they paid their cab fares and such. I said, "Who's Marvy?" "Oh, Marvin." Well, I didn't realize until afterwards that this unit just got back from deployment. And that Marvin, a.k.a. was his battle buddy. He'd gotten killed in Iraq. He was kind of, I said, this, and I got him back. And then as I leave, and I said to myself, this seems familiar, so I decided to do some things. But that's, mostly just making sure little shitheads get back to post. Yeah. Well, on that note. Well, have a good one.
Thank you, Mike. And let's get that, got double duty going on. They're signing the release, and we're also picking another slammer. When I first came to Boise from New York, there was a new service that was starting here that a lot of Boiseans didn't know about or what it was, called Uber. And at first, the rides were all free because Uber didn't have a license to operate in Boise. And I thought, gosh, this looks like picking money off trees. I'll drive Uber for a little while. And that, I did learn to have, thank you, Susan. I did learn to have a little bit of an intuition there because one woman I picked up, she asked, "Can we stop at Maverick on the way?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't care. It's all, it's free. So I get paid by the meter and you can do whatever you want." She goes into Maverick. She's in there for like 5 minutes. She did not come out the same woman. She was like sliding around in her chair. She asked if she could kiss me. Eventually, she kind of passed out in the chair, and we had passed a house in this neighborhood off of 5 Mile, and she'd kind of like, and I was like, "Oh, is this where?" And she's like, "No, keep going, keep going, keep going." And I thought, I think that's the. Well, then now I'm going to jail because I ended up taking her phone and looking for contacts. And then eventually decided, you know what, I think that was the house. And so I pulled up to the house, I knocked on the door, and I said, "Are you expecting a visitor?" And she was like, "Is she drunk?" Speaking of drunk people, Mary Frances. That wasn't nice of me. I have no knowledge about how much Mary has had tonight or in the past or at any other time. but she has been out of town a lot this season. And this might be the only show she's made it to, and she's been a Slammer of the Year contestant. And now we get to hear her tonight for her Sixth Sense story. It happened. Welcome, Mary.
All right, so I'm not 6'5", so the microphone, even if it keeps falling, it'll still hear me, Mike. So for Beth, marriage. So can I have 2 extra minutes, Jodi, because I really want to give a plug for this event.
For this event?
Yeah.
We're already here.
Well, so, oh yeah, right? Well, story in itself. So story in itself is one of the best venues for individuals to feel a lot of things. Companionship, creativity, and support. And I remember one night, a name was called, and it was because a 9-year-old son had put his mother's name in. And she absolutely refused, unlike Stacy Beam. And so Jodi had the 9-year-old boy come up, and precious little guy, had nothing to do with the theme. And who cared? He's like, well, one time in 3rd grade. And Jodi was so gracious, and the audience was so supportive. And that's when I realized that, and according to me, Life for Mary, this is one of my homes in terms of expression and acceptance and creativity. So I really want to give a big hand to Jodi and everyone else that makes this happen. And I kind of can't look at Jodi the same, because he said I travel for my real job and I haven't been able to come to some of the other ones. But the last time I saw this guy, oh my God, he had this long hair and it was down to here. And I'm like, sexy beast. Right? Right? Am I wrong? Come on. And even with the haircut, and he did cabaret, he's still sexy as shit. Right? He is. And he devotes so much time to this. And I have to say something else. So thanks for the extra 2 minutes. Yeah, baby. So what this dance means, he'll dance more if you stand up and commit to be an annual prescriber and have your tickets every year. Jodi, what's up? You want to dance for everybody that's going to do the right? So I have to confess that I am not a ticket owner for every year. Jodi, what's it called?
Story subscriber.
Okay, story subscriber. That's what we want to hear tonight for next year, because I am guilty and I am going to be a story subscriber? Addict! A story addict! And make sure and bring more people and bring more friends, because in my real world, when I tell people about this in Meridian or in Nampa or even in they're what? Like, why don't you know about story?
And your bonus 2 minutes are over.
Okay, we're done. Except for Beth, marriage. So come this summer to the wedding, right? Because, oh my God, I've been married twice. So you don't want me on stage for that. So, okay, now I'm gonna confess. I am a woo-woo, as my friend Stacy said, and I actually, honest to gosh, have been blessed with being connected to the other side. And I am guilty of the fact that I really am more comfortable living on the other side. And those of you in the audience, first of all, I want to say this. You don't have to raise your hand, but I know that 98% of you out there, 9 out of 10 of us, have been in a horrible situation. And it was those on the other side that got us out of it. And you don't know how, you don't know why, you can't explain it, but you know it. You know it. The other is that Animals on the other side actually do greet us first. They actually make a line before human being. You can get to the spirits that you recognize as human beings. The fish, cats, dogs, cow, whatever, they're there first. Right? Okay? So we connect on that. The third thing is that the ability to connect, the ability to believe, the ability to be guided by messages, license plate numbers, or what have you, is just is common as creating a muscle like a bicep. You just have to work at it, and you have to believe at it. So I want everybody to know tonight how the importance of this sixth sense is, because we all have it, and it's not something that's estranged. It's just something that you really just, if you want and if you choose to believe in, and that's the bottom line. And I have so many great stories to tell you, because I'm kind of like the Teresa from New Jersey. When spirit is strong enough and it wants to speak, it does, and it won't leave you, and that's the case. So I do want to tell you a story, because this is the most impactful story for me. Okay, does my 5 minutes start now? Because for me, when it comes to strangers and I say, hey, can I talk to you, on the side, because I have some messages, and it's just like this. This is what I get, like, oh, we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. So this is what happened personally. When I moved here, I did not know a single person. I had a 1-year-old, 1.5, and a 2.5-year-old. So I wanted a daycare that was a family-oriented situation. Unfortunately, my husband, we're really good friends now, at the time went AOL for 10 years. And so this family literally raised my children and me, quite frankly. They were of a different religion. Who cares? So let's just fast forward. And the father succumbed to a motorcycle wreck. He was a teacher at Sawtooth Middle School. I was actually in my home. I heard it all. I heard the sirens. And then the next day, I went out and saw all the markings. And so in my Catholic way, I literally built a cross, put pictures of him, drilled a fake apple, and put it out there. Leave it at that. So I'm going to say his name, because I talked to him tonight, and he said, go ahead and say my name. So his name is David Campbell. So David Campbell keeps coming to me in dreams. I can't tell his wife about it, because I'll just say the religion has 3 letters in it, and those don't like the Catholics. But I'm a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person. So he's coming to me in my dreams. He's about 15 years old. He's telling me about his whole life on the other side. He's fine. Take care of my kids and all of this. And I can't tell his wife. 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 2 weeks go by. I go to their house. Again, it was their daycare, so I always knocked. It's Mary, I'm coming in, because it was always their home. I literally walked down the hall where there used to be the things for the cubbies. Now, I'm not responding to David. I've not told his wife, Becky, about him, because I'm thinking, it'll ruin our friendship. She's never going to believe me. They're my family. I walk down the hall, slam into him, turn around. There's no way I'm going to tell her this. And I could cry here tonight, like, no way. I mean, I've heard everything. This has gone on for me since 4th grade. I've never walked into a spirit. She comes around, how you doing? I'm going, fine. Yeah, well, right, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yep. I'm crying. I leave. Talk to Dave. What do you want me to do? I'll lose everything. I'll lose this family. So I finally tell her, go over, can I talk to you? Guess what she says? Oh my gosh, somebody believes me when I say I feel him. Somebody believes me when I say I keep cleaning his shaven mustache hairs out of the sink. Somebody believes me when he hugs me in bed. Don't raise your hand. I know many of you out there understand exactly what I'm saying. And this story brought us closer and closest together because we could finally talk about this. Last but not least, he's still with me. He 777s me because when she used to block him, I'm like, what's number 77? Oh, that's his football jersey. So to this day, just 2 weeks ago, I would talk to her. She's remarried. I introduced her to her husband, of course, from Dave, right? So just believe what you see, believe what you feel, don't discount it. There you go. Connect with the other side because you're never, ever, ever, ever alone. We are always watched, cared for, and loved for. Amen. Good night. Loka noš in Croatian. Thank you. Hvala.
You know, the great thing about this microphone tonight is as we talk about these high spiritual things, the microphone brings us closer and closer back to the earth. I also try not to comment on people's stories, really, but I am struggling with the part where Mary said she, in her real life in Meridian, I'm like, that's real life? Oh, regional diss there. You got to do it, right? It's obligatory. All right, this is the part of the show where I conjure the spirit of Carol Burnett. You'll understand in a moment. Stephen, help me out. Stories come from the land as well as its people, and I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Shoshone-Bannock people. Thank you, yes. Story Night is supported by public funding for the arts through the Idaho Commission on the Arts, the Idaho Legislature, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Remember, you can listen to podcasts from all our shows or see the flagship shows on our YouTube channel. We also have a radio show. It's Story Night on Stray Theater, which airs on the Sunday before our live show from 5:30 to 6 on Radio Boise. Want to thank our sound sculpture artist, AlejAndro Anastasio. Thank you to our crew, technical director, podcast, and video engineer, Stephen Baldessari. Thank you to our interpreters, Livona Andrew and Sierra McIver. Thank you to our photographer, Christina Birkenbein. You'll see her photos up on the socials. Thank you to our volunteers, our volunteer coordinator, Natalia DiJosia. Thank you to our board of directors. You met the past and the future here tonight. Thank you to our story subscribers. Thank you to Jump and the crew here for hosting us. Join us next on June 13th for the first summer show in our American Dreams Marriage. Those tickets are available now on our website. And you could submit to be a featured storyteller by writing story at storynight.org. And for the last time this season, Story Night, story, good night. Beginning, middle, now at the end. Authentic, inspiring, and a lot tonight, spontaneous. So thank you. You shared your stories and you really listened. I might have come here as a stranger, but now I'm leaving as a friend. 13 years, and so the story doesn't end. See you in the summer. Good night.